The Forum on the Family is one of the premier family conferences held each year with international and national speakers and political leaders. Hosted by Family First New Zealand, the Forum brings together a national network of family-focused organisations, scholars, lobby groups, church leaders and community groups who are part of a growing movement to bring New Zealand to a point where families are strengthened, marriage is honoured, life is protected and religious freedom is defended. This year's conference will again be held at the Dewdrop Event Centre in Manukau City, not too far from the Auckland Airport, on Thursday 28th of August and Friday 29th of August. Yes, because of demand, we're starting the conference earlier with 3 important sessions and a time of networking on the Thursday evening, and then a full-day program all day Friday. This year's theme is Courage at a Cultural Tipping Point. The culture is slowly but surely waking up to the harmful effects of the radical left-wing agenda and the destruction of family values that we all hold dear. Some countries have even figured out how to define a woman. And at this year's conference, once again, we have an amazing lineup of brave speakers from the US, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. Dr. Miriam Grossman last spoke at our forum in 2012. You may also recognise her from the recent Daily Wire documentary, What is a Woman? But more recently, she's released an important book on the transgender agenda. I'll be doing a live interview with Dr. Grossman from New York, where she is based. Jeff Johnson is an issues analyst for Focus on the Family in the United States. We're also very excited to have Dawn Hawkins discussing the issue of pornography and sexual exploitation. From Canada, we have Amanda Achtman bringing us a warning about the slippery slope of euthanasia. From Australia, we have Kirralie Smith, a wife, a mother, and an activist for biology and truth, but who is paying the price for speaking up. And for the first time in New Zealand, you will get to hear their side of the story. Israel and Maria Folau. Now, we're hoping that they'll be able to attend in person. They're keen to be here, but it does depend on Israel's rugby schedule in Japan. But either way, we'll get to hear from them personally and not via the hostile mainstream media. And finally, we're hosting and recording a special episode of Straight Talk before a live audience at the conference. It'll be a lively discussion and you can be part of that live audience. I want to invite you to this year's Forum on the Family. It starts Thursday night, 28th, 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and then all day Friday, 29th from 8:45 a.m. through to 4:30 p.m. It's the highlight of the year and you don't want to miss it. Arrange to be there. Book your flights today. Gather your friends. If you're concerned for our culture, our country and our families, you may be saying, what can I do? Well, step 1, attend the Forum on the Family. Have your spine stiffened by some fabulous speakers who will encourage, equip and inspire you. Now, the last couple of years have been sellouts, so don't delay. Go to our website, forumonthefamily.nz, for all the information you need. Register today. Don't miss this important family conference. Go to forumonthefamily.nz. Register today.
Well, good morning everyone, and if I might, welcome back to myself. Obviously was not here last week. I hope you missed me. You don't have to tell me that, but no, look, all jokes aside, it is lovely to be back here on solid ground on this rather chilly, in this case Auckland morning, and incredibly foggy. I can't turn the camera around. Obviously my background is not doing justice to what's outside, but I can barely see up my driveway to where a massive oak tree in one of my stepkids' cars normally sit. It's out there, I believe. But good morning to everyone. And for those joining here this morning, and you'll be across all sorts of platforms, know that if you're on the Family First Facebook page or on YouTube, you'll be able to make comments. And so feel free to do so. Always love to interact. If you've got questions or thoughts about anything that's happening here in New Zealand or around the world, let me know. So importantly, I need to say good morning to those of you who are already commenting, and as always, lovely to have you along. So there's Michael, good morning. Lynette in Christchurch, Chile there as well, that doesn't surprise me. Oh, Liz, lovely to have you along. I hope the morning walk is going well. Darren's echoing what I had mentioned. It's exceptionally foggy here in Auckland this morning. To Dee Dee, welcome along. Rosie, how could we do a show without you here? It's great to have everyone along. As you might know, Bob probably intimated it, or maybe I mentioned something. I was away in Tokyo last week for the 9th World Convention on Tibet. While many things are happening in the world, many crises, many problems, Tibet is one of the issues that I focus on. And I'm not going to go into this in too much depth. There's so many other things to discuss today. But I've got a bit of an issue with the Chinese Communist Party. As you might know, I write about it often. I've spoken out many times, including what they do here in New Zealand. But the ongoing oppression of the Tibetan people is just terrible. Long and short, children are basically still taken from their families. They're forced to learn Chinese and not Tibetan. They're disconnected from their culture, their religion, indoctrinated. And it's really pretty terrible. And good morning to Chris. So what's happening in Tibet should concern all of us, I would say. It's far too easy to get caught up in, other topics du jour. Think of the Middle East comes to mind, to be honest with you. But what we have happening on the Tibetan plateau now over decades is just horrid. And it was a privilege to be there, to go along. I'm just trying to find my photos. So this is actually me with one of their political prisoners now in Tokyo. She was brought over. She escaped from Tibet. As a young woman, she basically put on her Tibetan dress and held up a sign praising the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And within minutes, Chinese police came and arrested her. And long and short, this very young woman, as she was then, spent 3 years in a Chinese prison for simply dressing in Tibetan dress and, if you will, extolling the virtues of the Dalai Lama. It'd be like me, I don't know, I'm not sure what a New Zealander puts on. I put on my jandals and shorts and put up a sign saying, I really like the Pope. Then all of a sudden, police arrive. So 3 years she spent in effectively re-education camps, in businesses making copper wire. Eventually she was released. As I say, you imagine this young woman, much younger than she is now, 3 years in prison. And then she escaped and made her way to northern India, where the Tibetan exile and government is. So, I just share that because that's the human face of what's happening there. The Chinese Communist Party are intent on wiping out Tibetan culture. They've even renamed Tibet. I'm not even going to use their stupid name. That they are trying to, again, erase Tibet as a culture, as a religion. And it's exceptionally sad. So I was over there with a whole lot of MPs, senators, former MPs, academics for a conference where I suppose we attempt to distill, what is happening and try to make as many statements we can into society. So really privileged to be there. And I just have to say, the Tibetan community, I find, are just so wonderful and so warm and so welcoming. And it's, one of those little mysteries that somehow those who suffer terribly often can be the most generous and kind of spirit. And I just want to acknowledge that Tibetan community. In a couple of things. Lisa Marie, always happy to share about my trips. I must admit, since leaving Parliament, it's been quite grace-filled insofar as from work opportunities to travel opportunities, doors just keep opening. And in fact, it's not my last trip this year. I have at least another 2 coming up, and I don't say that with any great pride as such. It's just been amazing, the opportunities I now have. There's an irony, guys, I think. It's in leaving Parliament, and don't get me wrong, I loved being there, but in leaving Parliament now I have a much greater opportunity to speak. And Dee Dee's nailed something here, and I'm going to try and write about it on my Substack in the coming days. No one protests communist China. No. If I had to be somewhat, well, actually, to be blunt about it, there's no Jews there. That's the long and the short of it. When it comes to the Middle East, and I do want to touch on a few things there, huge protests, as we know, about the Israel-Gaza war. And that's, there's things to protest about. There's things to be concerned about. I don't want to be dismissive of that. But huge protests of what's happening there, but not one protest that I'm aware of, or those protesters, around what's happening in Tibet. And I think that's quite shocking, because, of course, when it comes to China, there's ongoing attacks on the likes of, obviously, the Tibetans, the Uyghurs. We know that they attack over the Indian border. We know what they're doing to Taiwan, the threats, pushing out the Philippines and others around the islands they've decided are theirs, the persecution and prosecution of House Christians, Falun Gong. I mean, the list is huge. But Dee Dee's right. No one seems to speak about that here. There's other, causes du jour. Anyway, positive news. Let's start with some positive news. This is coming out of France. So Pornhub, I think, is the largest pornographic provider in the world, but the French government has put in age verification laws. It's a little bit of what's being discussed here around the under-16s, but long and short, France, as I understand it, has moved to put age verification in place, and Pornhub's kicked up a stink, and they're so upset they've left. They're leaving France, which, when you think of France, will be quite a shock. I'm sure they'll find other alternatives, but long and short, I think it's actually just a good win. And one of the speakers coming to our forum on the family will actually be talking into this, how pornography is so pernicious in society, but also the steps we can take to really make life more challenging, as ironically, of all things, the French are doing. So look, I'm sure there's always lots of debate in this space around privacy issues and so forth, but as we know, pornography is incredibly harmful to the watchers, but particularly to the women who are involved and objectified. But good to see that happening in France. I suspect they'll come back, Pornhub that is, but for the meantime, that's some good news from France. Here in New Zealand, not really a moral and ethical or even a political issue, but I just thought this was good. The young drivers here in New Zealand, the offending's been cut. So in the last 10 years, the number of offences from young drivers, be it from not having your seatbelt on to drink driving, is, well, as it said, it's nearly halved. So I think that's really good news. They're saying there's actually less drugs, less alcohol, which is, again, really positive. I suspect that was part of the law changes, actually, including when, pretty sure I was in Parliament. So there were so many laws passed where we said, actually, for young people, I think under 20, zero alcohol on your breath. In other words, just don't drink anything, has had an impact. But sadly, the deaths are still quite high. It's come down, but they're still quite high. But anyway, just thought those were some good news pieces. Just want to quickly acknowledge Juliana here, protesting around the organs from political prisoners. Look, absolutely, there are people who do still stand up for Tibet, which is amazing. I know there's other organisations and groups who will be out protesting. I think my wider point is we have massive protests on a whole lot of other issues, and often Tibet is forgotten in this case, or what's happening to the House Christians, or what's happening to the Uyghurs. It's just, for me, a disparity. But to acknowledge people like Juliana who are still standing up, Dee Dee's asking, what does that suggest? That I don't know how to answer that. I had to actually look into the survey a bit further to see what it means for older ones. I suspect those over 18, or at least over 20, still are a range of offences. Unfortunately, I don't have that data to hand, but one of the things I know that the AA was focusing on is that overall driving habits are getting better, yet we still have serious accidents. So, thinking off the top of my head, I suspect most of us are law-abiding, but those who are not are making a real problem about it. Yeah. Yes, and Juliana's also mentioning that's Lila McElwaite. I think she's actually been part of the forum before. She's not coming this year, But Lila's someone I'm actually trying to track down. Well, actually, I have her email to come on a podcast. So for those wondering, Lila's an amazing anti-pornography advocate and really going after the likes of Pornhub by hitting where there hurts, and that's in the monetary transactions. And I think, as Juliana's noted, the likes of actually Visa and MasterCard won't deal with them now. So there's positives there. Actually, thinking of that, of what will be, I'm going to give you a very quick... I see. See, here's me when Dee Dee asked the question about, and where has it gone now? I can't see it. Oh, what does it suggest there aren't people over 18? I thought he was mentioning the drunk driving, he meant the pornography. I think the issue with age verification, and it's part of the debate here in New Zealand around the under 16 laws, is to prove that someone's under 16, you have to age verify everybody. So it doesn't matter if it's accessing, as in New Zealand's debating, the likes of Facebook or YouTube, but it would be the likes of pornography sites. And so you go, great, I don't want an under 16-year-old accessing pornography. It's good that they get age verified, but in order to do that, you have to verify everybody. And that's when some privacy concerns kick up for some people. But can I encourage people to jump on to actually the Family First YouTube channel or our website and look up my recent podcast with Melissa McKay. She's from the Childhood Digital Alliance. And she's a mother of 5. She's not a politician or a lobbyist. But she saw the harm social media in particular was doing to young people. And so she set about an idea, which is you target the app stores. If you have a phone that goes to the Google Play Store, or like me, an Apple, and go to the Apple Store, you've already actually given over enormous amounts of your data, including your age. And so she's making the argument, and there's now laws in the likes of Utah and in Texas that makes it mandatory that these app stores need to verify and confirm the age of its users. In other words, if you give a phone to a 13-year-old, which is probably not the best idea, but if you give a phone to a smartphone to a 13-year-old, it's been verified as they access the app store. In other words, you can't access certain products. So you might say, look, we're not allowing people under 16 to get onto Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. No one under 18, is accessing pornography apps and so forth. So look, my chat with her I found was amazing. I've actually shared it with some MPs because they're prattling about, guys, talking about age verification at the website end. So if you go onto Instagram or onto Twitter or onto whatever, TikTok, that's like squeezing a balloon. It's going to achieve very little and become incredibly cumbersome. What Melissa's done in the United States, I think, is much smarter, is focus in on the App Store. So go and check out that podcast. She's amazing in and of herself. But a speaker we have this year, and you might know her from a podcast I've done as well. I'll just quickly play that because that will also give me a chance to have a quick drink of my coffee.
Hi, I'm Kiralee Smith from binary.org.au, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you at Forum on the Family 2025.
Clearly an Aussie. Kiralee will be amazing. She is, again, just a mum who's standing up for biological reality and being persecuted for it. But she's going to be a great addition. Entity's got a good question. It is, look, this is where the tire hits the road around digital IDs. We won't be able to get to it in depth today, but I think the concerns are prudent. People have to be aware of this. Granted, we already give enormous amounts of data away to get, our passport or IRD and so forth. So at what point have we given almost all the information away? And, of course, if we end up with more age verification, what's that going to do? And is it in the hands of the government, or as is happening in America, it's actually in the hands of the corporates? Because, you have to go to an Apple or a Google and say, look, I'm 49, or I'm 62, or I'm 32, or I'm 12, whatever it is. So massive questions, and I think those are going to be important debates to have. Hey, one thing I wanted to draw your attention to is something that Bob actually came out. Bob's amazing, isn't he? He's recently celebrated a birthday. I'm not going to out his age, but he's recently celebrated a birthday and still continuing to do amazing work here at Family First. But he came across this, I think, yesterday. This is from an Anglican school in Dunedin, and it's an absolute shocker. I'll let you read it, but long and short, this is a chaplain at this girls' school. I believe it's a girls' school. I could be wrong on that. But twisting the notion of the Christian God to fit her view of pride. There are so many things wrong with this, but you do have to wonder with chaplains like this, and I assume she's an ordained minister in the Anglican Communion, do they actually go and study any theology, or are they just putting their hand in the Weet-Bix box and pulling out a clerical collar? Because this woman shows absolutely no understanding or respect for the Christian worldview. It's offensive at so many levels. I mean, first and foremost, she shows no understanding of the nature of the Trinity. She's celebrating pride, which, if you had any theological training, and in fact you don't even need any, you would know that pride is a sin. She's clearly not honouring God in any way. In fact, she's trying to twist the notion of God to fit her LGBTQI political agenda, and ultimately is putting people into, well, she's not honouring God, I think I'd said that, but she's also leading people astray, and she'd be very well advised to go and read Matthew 18, because it's an absolute shocker. And I keep saying that because I had to sort of do a double, triple take when I read it. So long and short, she's basically saying because the Christian notion of the Trinity involves three, that's an advocacy for pride and probably queer theory. She does what a lot of these woke Christian pastors do, which is trying to say that God just accepts everybody. Well, and then just leaves it there. That, of course, has never been the Christian message. In fact, we've just celebrated the great feast of Pentecost. And the readings there are very clear as, the various miracles, the speaking in tongues and things were happening by the apostles, said to people, we have healed you in the name of Jesus, but repent. Repent and believe the good news. And again, this chaplain clearly has no idea. As I say, she's dishonouring God, dishonouring the notion of the Trinity. The Trinity is one God, three persons, two natures. It's a mystery. It's not a discussion point around human sexuality and human relationships. That has never been the notion of the Trinity. The idea that somehow God is three, and therefore she's basically arguing that polyamorous and all sorts of relationships are possible. I mean, I suspect her next move would be to suggest that God is eternity and therefore doesn't have an age, which open up a whole new can of worms. Again, her theology is just so appalling, and she brings, I think, great shame not only to the school, but to whatever religious tradition she's in. And I say that because I think this is an Anglican school, and I do worry, I'll be completely blunt, I do worry about the number of Anglican-trained clergy who come through whose basic theology is beyond appalling, but it's not guaranteed that she's an Anglican. She could be from another tradition. But again, it's appalling, absolutely appalling. As I say, to try and pervert the notion of God to fit sexual preferences in humans isn't honouring God. The other thing to note, of course, is, I'm just trying to just get, Sue's comment caught my eye. Look, it is serious mission drift. It's stupid. It's the purpose of creating family. Look, there's so many elements to this which she has just got totally and utterly wrong. I think the final point that we need to make is Christianity opens its arms to all. If you ever look at a cross or a crucifix, Christ's arms are always spread fully out. That's symbolically a gesture, actually, of embracing all and everyone. And I know this is quite a religious or theological point this morning, but God calls all people to himself. But he also calls for us to change. As I said, with the readings around Pentecost this Sunday and around Trinity Sunday, is always calling people to repent and believe the good news. We are being called to change, to conform ourselves more to the person of Jesus Christ. That's the Christian message. And this Gillian Townsley can't even get the basics, the 101 of Christian understanding right. And I think it's appalling. I know I keep coming back to that word, but I think it's appalling that we have Christian ministers like her going around and warping the minds of young people and using God to do it. And my strong suggestion to her is to pick up a book. It's called the Bible. She's probably not really familiar with it, but it's called the Bible. It's a very popular book, Gillian. Look up Matthew 18. I think it's verse 6. Have a good read of that, Gillian, because it applies to you as you lead people astray with idiotic posts like this one. There endeth the lesson. So look, there's that. Our last couple of points, because I know time is upon us. Actually, no, I'm going to leave it there. I've prattled long enough, and it's coming up to 8 o'clock, so I better turn my attention to getting my little young foster daughter to school. Seeing we've been talking about schools. Guys, it's been wonderful to have you along. I see lots of comments pouring in. And Trinity, I see you've just joined us. Lovely to have you. And Bella, thank you as well. It is appalling. I'm sorry I just keep using that word, but it really is. It's just nutty. I mean, ultimately what gets me is, and it's not all Christian ministers by any means, there's just this rump of them which basically twist the Christian message to suit the political agenda of today. There's always been a wonderful saying. It's from a guy called Cardinal Sarah. And obviously I come out of the Catholic tradition, so I make no apologies for that, but obviously I draw a lot from it. But he says, the gospel is there to change us, not us the gospel. The gospel is there to change us, not us the gospel. And far too many woke clerics, pastors, and ministers these days try to twist the gospel, try to change the gospel to suit their ends and the political ends of today. And all I will say to that is it will not end well for them. Guys, I should leave on a happy note, which is the fog is slowly lifting. It is wonderful to have you all along. Oh, I should remind, sorry, almost forgot. A heads up, Bob is away this week, so this is an image that is an error. Bob will not be doing Daybreak tomorrow or Friday. You're just going to have to put up with me on Wednesday. He is having a well-deserved break, and I would say celebration of his birthday, which is wonderful. So just join me again on Thursday. And then speaking of Thursday, this Thursday, Political Playback, which is live at 5 o'clock. I've got a guest in, Brendan Malone. He's probably familiar to you. He's been on my podcast. He's been on Straight Talk. He does amazing and wonderful work. So he's going to be my guest on Thursday. So check that out. Obviously, Bob continues to do his Substacks. Go to substack.com. He's just written on that woman's name that we will not mention. And I've just published also on Substack. If you look up On Point or my name, just on the recent comments of Chris Bishop calling out a music performance. And if you haven't had enough of Bob and me, was it Bob and I? We can have a grammatical discussion. I think it's Bob and me. You can jump onto RCR, Reality Check Radio. I did an interview with Bob. We touched on quite a number of issues it must have been 2 weeks ago before I went to Tokyo. So look, there's no shortage. So guys, have a wonderful day. I just hope it's going to be, a lovely one. I'm hoping here in Auckland that the fog burns off and we can, enjoy a gorgeous day. See you guys Thursday morning.